The soft blue glow of monitoring screens filled the lunar base's control room. It was another quiet night shift for the deep space monitoring team, until a steady beeping caught everyone's attention. The signal was unlike anything they had ever seen before. "Sir, you need to see this," said the young operator, adjusting his headset as he stared at the strange patterns dancing across his screen. The shift supervisor walked over, coffee cup in hand, and leaned in to look at the readings. The signal was coming from the edge of the Kuiper Belt, far beyond where any human spacecraft had ventured. Its pattern was too regular to be natural, too complex to be human-made, and too close to be ignored. Within hours, the lunar base was buzzing with activity. Captain James Miller of Earth's Space Rescue Operations received the emergency call while he was having dinner at his apartment in New Houston. As the head of humanity's most elite space rescue team, he had seen his fair share of unusual situations, but this was different. "Play it again," he ordered, standing in the lunar base's main control room 12 hours later. The signal filled the room once more, its otherworldly pattern making the hair on the back of his neck stand up. The computers had already confirmed what everyone suspected. This was an artificial signal, and it wasn't from Earth. Miller looked around the room at his team. They were the best Earth had to offer: rescue specialists, engineers, and communication experts. Each of them wore the same expression of wonder and uncertainty. "It's a distress signal," announced Dr. Roberts, the team's signal analyst. "The pattern matches universal distress protocols, like an SOS that works across different civilizations." She pointed to specific parts of the signal pattern on the main screen. "See these repeating sequences? They're mathematical constants. Whoever sent this wanted to make sure anyone who received it would understand they need help." Miller nodded, his mind already working through the implications. Humanity had long prepared for first contact, but nobody had expected it to come in the form of a rescue mission. He pressed the intercom button on the central console. "Get me the World Space Council. Now." The next few hours were a blur of activity. As Miller briefed the council, more data came in. The signal was coming from a fleet of ships, massive ones, far bigger than anything humans had built. They were stranded, their main propulsion systems dead in space. What happened next shocked everyone. As Miller and the council discussed possible responses, a new signal came through. This one was different. It was a direct communication attempt. The alien transmission filled the main screen of the lunar base. The image was grainy at first, then cleared to show a tall, elegant being with silvery skin. Its features were almost human-like, but with subtle differences that made it unmistakably alien. "I am Admiral Rel." The being spoke in perfect English, much to everyone's surprise. "We apologize for this unexpected contact, but we are in dire need of assistance. Our translation systems have analyzed your communications and determined that your species might be able to help us." Miller stepped forward. "This is Captain James Miller of Earth's Space Rescue Operations. We've received your distress signal. Can you tell us what happened?" The alien admiral's expression changed to what might have been embarrassment. "Our entire fleet's propulsion systems have failed. We carry 50,000 civilians, and our life support systems won't last forever. We've analyzed your species' technological development, and while you may consider yourselves less advanced, you possess something we desperately need: an understanding of mechanical engineering that our civilization has long since abandoned in favor of quantum systems." The room fell silent. The most advanced alien civilization they'd ever encountered needed humanity's help not despite their primitive technology, but because of it. Miller straightened his uniform and made the decision that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. "Admiral Rel, tell us what you need. Earth stands ready to assist." As the words left his mouth, alert sirens began blaring throughout the lunar base. Something large had just appeared at the edge of their solar system, heading straight for the stranded alien fleet. The rescue mission had suddenly become a race against time. The World Space Council's emergency meeting room was filled with tension. Representatives from every major nation sat around the massive oval table, their faces illuminated by the holographic display showing Admiral Rel's fleet. "We cannot risk Earth's safety," said the Russian representative, pounding his fist on the table. This could be a trap. Captain Miller stood at the front of the room, his hands clasped behind his back. He had spent the last 3 hours explaining the situation to the Council. With all due respect, if they wanted to attack us, they wouldn't need this elaborate setup. Their ships are far more advanced than ours. The Chinese representative leaned forward. Then why do they need our help? The answer came from the large screen behind Miller. Admiral Rel's image appeared again, looking more tired than before. "If I may address your concerns directly," the alien said, "I understand your caution. In your position, I would feel the same." The room fell silent. Nobody had expected the alien commander to join their private meeting. "Our civilization advanced so quickly that we lost touch with the basics," Rel continued. "Our ships run on quantum engines that our engineers barely understand. When they fail, we cannot fix them like you fix your combustion engines or nuclear drives. We need people who understand the physical principles, not just the computer systems." Miller watched the council members' faces change as they processed this information. It was like finding out that a professor needed help with basic math from a high school student. "Show them," Miller said quietly to Rel. The alien nodded, and the hologram changed to show the inside of one of their ships. Thousands of sleeping pods filled massive chambers, each containing a civilian. Children, elderly, families, all in suspended animation to conserve resources. "We are refugees," Rel explained. "These are not military vessels. They are colony ships carrying the survivors of our world. We fled from something worse than mechanical failure, but I cannot speak of that until we know we can trust each other." The American representative stood up. "Captain Miller, what resources would you need for a rescue mission?" Miller had been preparing for this question. 3 of our deep space rescue ships, the best engineers we have, and permission to share our technology with the aliens. They'll need to understand how we fix their ships. The debate lasted another 2 hours, but the images of those sleeping families had done their work. Earth would help. The next day, Miller stood in the lunar base's main hangar, watching as engineers loaded equipment onto the rescue ships. Each vessel was built for long-range rescue operations, equipped with tools to fix everything from small shuttles to space stations, but they had never been intended for anything like this. Tom Reed, the lead engineer, walked up to Miller with a tablet in his hand. "Captain, I've been studying the scans of their quantum engines. Something's not right." "What do you mean?" Reed scratched his head. "These engines, they're too perfect to fail like this. It's like finding a car with every single part broken at exactly the same time. It's not natural." Before Miller could respond, alarms blared through the hangar. Another ship had appeared near the stranded fleet. This one was different, smaller, faster. Admiral Rel's face appeared on every screen in the hangar, panic clear in his expression. "Captain Miller, we must hurry. They've found us." "Who's found you?" Miller demanded. "The ones we're running from. Please, there's no time to explain. If you're going to help us, it must be now." Miller looked at Reed, then at the rescue ships being loaded. They weren't ready. The crews weren't fully briefed. The council hadn't finished the paperwork, but 50,000 lives hung in the balance. He pressed his communicator. "All rescue crews, this is Captain Miller. Emergency launch protocol is now in effect. We leave in 30 minutes. As the hangar erupted into organized chaos, Miller watched the mysterious new ship on the long-range scanners. Whatever the aliens were running from, Earth was now involved. He just hoped they were ready for what was coming. "Reed," he called out to the engineer, "pack every basic tool we have. Something tells me we're going to need them." The 3 Earth rescue ships pushed through the darkness of space, their engines glowing bright against the star-filled background. Inside the lead ship, Captain Miller watched as their destination grew larger on the main screen. The alien fleet looked like a cluster of silver diamonds floating in space, beautiful but dead in the water. Tom Reed sat at his engineering station, surrounded by paper diagrams and old technical manuals. While other crew members used tablets and computers, he preferred the feeling of real paper under his fingers. Something about this mission made him want to stick to the basics. "Captain," he called out, "I've been comparing their engine designs to everything we know about quantum mechanics. These ships shouldn't have failed. It's like someone knew exactly where to hit them." Miller walked over to Reed's station. "You think it was deliberate? Look here." Reed spread out a diagram. Every quantum engine in their fleet failed in exactly the same way. That's not an accident. That's like having 20 cars all get flat tires at the same spot on the same day. Their conversation was interrupted by the ship's navigator. "Sir, we're entering the outer edge of the Kuiper Belt. We'll reach the alien fleet in 2 hours." The journey had taken 3 days, the fastest any human ship had ever traveled this far. They had pushed their engines to the limit, knowing that something was following the alien fleet. Whatever it was, it had disappeared from their scanners a day ago, which made everyone even more nervous. Dr. Anna Woods, the mission's expert in alien biology, joined them at Reed's station. "The refugees in those ships," she said, looking at the scans, "they're in suspended animation. But they can't stay that way forever. Even their advanced technology has limits." Miller nodded. They all knew what was at stake. 50,000 lives depended on humans figuring out how to fix technology they barely understood. The radio crackled. "This is Rescue Ship 2. Captain, we're picking up some strange readings from the debris field ahead." Miller looked up at the main screen. Scattered around the alien fleet were pieces of what looked like broken machinery, parts that had been ejected from the ships when their engines failed. "Reed, take a team and suit up," Miller ordered. "I want samples of that debris. Maybe it can tell us what really happened here." An hour later, Reed floated in space among the broken pieces of alien technology. His spacesuit felt clumsy compared to the sleek design of the alien ships, but it was reliable. He grabbed a piece of twisted metal and examined it through his helmet visor. "Captain," he said into his radio, "you need to see this. These aren't random breaks. These are tool marks. Someone deliberately damaged these parts." Back on the bridge, Miller received another call from Admiral Rell. The alien commander's face showed clear worry. "Captain Miller, our sensors detect your teams examining the debris. What have you found?" Miller looked at the image of the alien commander carefully. "Admiral, I think it's time you told us what you're really running from. Who did this to your ships?" There was a long pause. When Rell spoke again, his voice was lower. "They are called the Hunters. They believe our civilization has become too dependent on advanced technology. They want to force us back to a simpler time, by any means necessary." "And they're still following you," Miller stated. It wasn't a question. "Yes, they will return. And when they do, they will not just destroy our engines. They will destroy everything." The ship's alarm suddenly blared. "Captain," the radar operator shouted. "Multiple objects just appeared at the edge of our scanner range. They're moving fast." Miller looked at his crew, then back at Rell's image on the screen. "Admiral, we're going to help you, but no more secrets. We need to know everything about these hunters if we're going to have any chance of stopping them." Reed's voice came over the radio from outside. "Captain, permission to try something crazy. I have an idea, but you're going to have to trust me." Miller smiled grimly. Crazy ideas from good engineers had saved more lives in space than any advanced technology. "Go ahead, Reed. Show us what you've got." As the unknown ships approached, Miller prepared his crew for what was coming. They were about to find out if human ingenuity could stand up against whatever was hunting the alien fleet. The approaching ships looked like dark arrows against the stars. They moved fast, but stayed just outside weapons range. Captain Miller stood on his bridge, watching these hunter ships circle the stranded fleet like wolves around wounded prey. "They're testing our defenses," Lieutenant Torres said from his security station. "But why aren't they attacking?" The answer came from Tom Reed, who was still outside examining the debris. "Because we're here," he said through the radio. "We're something they didn't expect. Look at their ship design. No windows, no external sensors. They're completely dependent on computer targeting." Miller understood immediately. "And they can't get a computer lock on our ships because our technology is too basic for their advanced systems." Admiral Rel's voice joined the conversation. "Captain Miller is correct. The hunters have become so focused on destroying advanced technology that they've forgotten how to deal with simpler solutions." Reed's excited voice crackled over the radio. "Captain, I need to show you something. Permission to bring a piece of debris aboard." Minutes later, Miller stood in the cargo bay with Reed, looking at what appeared to be a broken piece of the alien engine. But Reed was pointing at something else, tiny marks that looked like scratches on the metal. "These aren't just damage marks," Reed explained, pulling out an old magnifying glass. "They're tool marks. But here's the weird part. They're made by standard tools. Tools like we use, not some advanced alien technology." Miller's eyes widened. "Are you saying the saboteurs are using our level of technology to break their advanced systems?" Reed finished. "They're hiding among the refugees, pretending to be maintenance workers. That's why the aliens can't find them. They're looking for advanced sabotage methods, not simple mechanical damage." The ship's intercom buzzed. "Captain, Admiral Rel is requesting permission to come aboard. He says it's urgent." Miller looked at Reed, who nodded. "Grant permission," Miller ordered, "but double security protocols." When Admiral Rel stepped onto the human ship, everyone was struck by how tall he was in person. His silvery skin seemed to shimmer under the cargo bay lights, but what caught Miller's attention was the way the alien leader stared at their simple tools with something like longing. "Your engineer is correct," Rel said quietly. "We have been blind. The hunters have infiltrated my people by pretending to embrace our ways, while secretly working to destroy everything we've built. They believe that advanced technology has made us weak." "Why didn't you tell us this from the start?" Miller demanded. Rel's large eyes showed what might have been shame. "Because the saboteurs are my people, a group that broke away, calling themselves the Hunters. They believe the only way to save our species is to force us back to a simpler time. They gained their knowledge of basic tools and mechanics by studying other species, including yours." A loud alarm suddenly cut through the air. "Captain," Torres's voice shouted over the intercom, "we're detecting unauthorized access to the alien fleet's life support systems." Reed grabbed his toolbox. "They're making their move. They know we've figured it out." Miller turned to Rel. "How many maintenance workers do you have on your ships?" 20 on each vessel," Rel answered. Then his expression changed as he understood. "But we only authorized 15 per ship. The extra 5 on each ship are your saboteurs," Miller said grimly. "And now they're trying to kill everyone before we can stop them." Reed held up a simple voltage meter. "Captain, I think I know how to find them. Their tools might look like ours, but they're putting out different energy signatures. We can track them using basic electrical detection equipment. Nothing fancy that their jammers would block." Miller nodded. "Organize search teams. Mix your engineers with Admiral Rel's loyal crew members. Lieutenant Torres, arm the teams with simple projectile weapons, nothing with electronic targeting." As the teams prepared to board the alien ships, Miller watched the hunter vessels still circling in the distance. They were waiting for something. Whatever the saboteurs were planning, it was going to happen soon. "Remember," he told the search teams, "they're expecting us to use advanced technology to find them. That's their weakness. Sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones." The hunt was on, and Earth's primitive technology was about to prove its worth. The corridors of the alien ship were silent except for the sound of boots on metal floors. Tom Reed led his search team, holding his simple voltage meter in front of him like a compass. Behind him, two of Admiral Rel's crew members and Lieutenant Torres moved cautiously, armed with basic projectile weapons. "Contact ahead," Reed whispered, watching the meter's needle jump. "Something's putting out way too much electrical noise for normal tools." Torres raised his hand, signaling the team to stop. Around them, the alien ship's walls glowed with a soft blue light. Everything looked peaceful, but they all knew better now. Suddenly, the lights went out. "They're making their move," Torres said quietly. Everyone switched to chemical lights. Reed pulled out several old-fashioned green glow sticks from his pocket and cracked them, passing them around. The saboteurs had expected to blind them by cutting power, but human technology didn't need electricity to work. The voltage meter's needle swung wildly. "They're close," Reed said, "and they're using something big." A door ahead of them slid open manually, and a figure stepped out. It looked like one of Rel's people, but it was carrying what appeared to be a toolbox. When it saw them, it raised something that definitely wasn't a wrench. "Down!" Torres shouted. Everyone dropped as an energy beam cut through the air where they had been standing. Reed rolled behind a corner, his mind racing. The saboteur's weapon was advanced, but it needed power to work. And where there was power, he pulled a rubber mat from his pack and slid it across the floor. The next energy blast hit it and bounced harmlessly away. Basic physics. Rubber doesn't conduct electricity. "The floor," he shouted to Torres. "It's metal. Use it." Torres understood immediately. He fired his simple steel projectile weapon at the floor near the saboteur. The bullets ricocheted upward, catching their attacker by surprise. The alien dropped its weapon with a cry of pain. But they weren't done yet. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. "Life support is failing in the civilian sectors," one of Rel's crew members reported, checking a wall panel. "They're trying to force us to restore power." Reed looked at his voltage meter again. Its needle was pointing down a different corridor. "There are more of them. They're heading for the main engine room." Captain Miller's voice crackled over their radio, one of the few electronic devices they'd risked bringing. "Reed, we're detecting power surges all over the fleet. Whatever they're planning, it's happening now." Reed reached into his toolbox and pulled out an old pair of wire cutters. "Captain, remember how they sabotaged the quantum engines using basic tools? Well, maybe we can save them the same way." He turned to his team. "The saboteurs are used to dealing with complex systems. They won't expect us to just cut the power lines to their weapons. Sometimes the simplest solution is just to pull the plug." Moving faster now, they'd followed the voltage meter's readings. They found two more saboteurs in the engine room, trying to overload the quantum core. But they were so focused on the complex control panels that they didn't notice Reed's team approaching from behind. "Stop," Torres commanded. The saboteurs spun around, raising their energy weapons. Reed didn't hesitate. He threw a handful of metal ball bearings across the floor. The saboteurs slipped, their advanced weapons firing wildly and missing everyone. In the chaos that followed, Reed made it to the main power conduit. Using his simple wire cutters, he severed the lines feeding power to the saboteurs' equipment. Their weapons died instantly. "Engine room secured," Torres reported to Miller. Reed's theory worked. Their fancy weapons are useless without power. But Reed wasn't celebrating yet. He was staring at the quantum engine's control panel, watching numbers that shouldn't have been possible. "Captain," he called over the radio, "I know why they chose now to attack. The quantum engines, they're not broken. They were building up power this whole time. The saboteurs weren't trying to destroy the fleet. They were turning the ships into bombs." Miller finished grimly. The distant hunter ships began moving closer. The real battle was about to begin. Captain Miller's voice rang through every ship in the fleet. "All crews, battle stations. This is not a drill." The hunter ships were closing in, their dark shapes growing larger on every screen. In the engine room of the main refugee ship, Tom Reed worked frantically with his basic tools. The quantum engines weren't broken, he explained to Admiral Rell through his radio. The saboteurs modify them to collect energy. One wrong move and this whole fleet becomes a giant bomb. Can you stop it? Miller asked. Reed wiped sweat from his forehead. Maybe. But I need time. Time is something we don't have, Torres reported. Hunter ships are launching boarding pods. They're coming to finish what their saboteurs started. Miller looked at the tactical display. 5 hunter ships against 3 human rescue vessels and a disabled alien fleet. The odds weren't good. But then he noticed something interesting about the hunter ships. Reed, he called, these hunter ships, they're using the same quantum technology as the refugee fleet, aren't they? Yes, Reed answered, his hands deep in engine wiring. They're even more advanced. Why? Miller smiled. Because they've forgotten the basics too. Lieutenant Torres, load the magnetic grappling cables. All rescue ships, prepare for Plan Anchor. Outside in space, the hunter ships moved with incredible precision, their advanced targeting systems seeking locks on the human vessels. But they found nothing to lock onto. The human ships were too simple, too primitive for their advanced sensors. Now, Miller ordered. All 3 rescue ships fired their magnetic grappling cables, simple tools designed for towing disabled vessels. The cables struck the hunter ships, latching on with basic but powerful magnets. Pull hard to port, Miller commanded. The rescue ships fired their chemical engines at full power, yanking the hunter ships off course. Their advanced quantum drives, trying to compensate for the unexpected force, overloaded. It's working, Torres shouted. Their fancy drives can't handle simple physical force. But the victory was short-lived. Boarding pods were already attaching to the refugee ships. The hunters were coming aboard. In the engine room, Reed suddenly stood up straight. Captain, I have an idea. A crazy one. Those are your best ones, Miller replied. The saboteurs turned these engines into bombs, Reed explained quickly. But what if we could control that power? Direct it. Admiral Rell, who had been listening, spoke up. You want to use the collected energy as a weapon. Better, Reed said. As a shield, simple electromagnetic pulse, powered by your own quantum drives. It'll fry every piece of advanced technology within range. Including our own ships, Rell pointed out. Reed nodded grimly. Yes, but our rescue ships will survive. Sometimes you have to go backward to move forward. Miller made his decision. Do it. All human crew, switch to backup mechanical systems. Prepare for power loss. As hunter troops began pouring into the refugee fleet, Reed connected the last wire. He looked at his old analog watch. No electronics to fry. 3 minutes until pulse. The hunters moved through the ships with deadly efficiency, their advanced weapons ready. But they found themselves facing human crew members armed with simple projectile weapons and basic tools. In the narrow corridors, their sophisticated targeting systems were useless. 1 minute, Reed called. Miller grabbed the ship's old-style mechanical intercom. All crews, brace for impact. This is going to get rough. Reed watched his watch tick down the final seconds. At 0, he pulled a simple mechanical lever. The stored quantum energy released in a massive electromagnetic pulse. Every advanced system in range went dark instantly. The hunter ships drifted powerless in space. Their troops found their weapons dead in their hands. But the human rescue ships, running on basic mechanical systems and chemical engines, were still functioning. All ships, Miller commanded through the backup radio, begin rescue operations. Let's show our guests what human hospitality looks like. The hunters, stripped of their technological advantage, were quickly captured. Their own dependence on advanced systems had become their downfall. As Reed helped restart the refugee fleet's basic systems, Admiral Rell approached him. Your people solved in days what we couldn't solve in months. How? Reed held up his old wrench. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. You just have to remember them. But their victory celebration was cut short by an urgent call from Earth. Captain Miller, the message began, we're detecting multiple large ships entering the solar system. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The massive ships of the Hunter fleet filled the view screens. 12 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They moved with deadly grace, their quantum drives humming with power. Captain Miller stood on his bridge, looking at the tactical display. Behind his rescue ships, the refugee fleet was slowly coming back online after the electromagnetic pulse, but they were still vulnerable. Earth was too far away to send help. Captain Tom Reed's voice came over the radio from the refugee ship's engine room. Remember how we beat their advance fleet? We can do it again, but bigger. Miller smiled. Sometimes the best plans were the crazy ones. What do you need? Everything magnetic we've got. And I mean everything. Every cable, every piece of metal. And I need all our ship's chemical engines. Admiral Rell, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. Captain Miller, whatever you're planning, you should know that this is the Hunter's main battle fleet. They've never been defeated. Then they've never faced humans before, Miller replied. He turned to his communications officer. Send to all ships, give Engineer Reed whatever he needs. The next hour was a blur of activity. The human rescue ships stripped themselves of every magnetic cable they had. The refugee fleet, following Reed's instructions, began powering up their quantum drives in a specific pattern. Lieutenant Torres watched the tactical display with growing concern. The Hunter fleet is moving into attack formation. We've got maybe 10 minutes. Reed's voice crackled over the radio again. Ready here, Captain. Remember your basic physics about how magnetic fields can be shaped. Miller nodded, beginning to understand the plan. All ships move into Formation Delta. Surround the refugee fleet. The 3 human rescue ships took up positions around the alien fleet, trailing their magnetic cables behind them like giant spider webs in space. The Hunter fleet commander's image appeared on their screens. Unlike Admiral Rell's people, these aliens had modified themselves with technological implants. They looked more machine than living being. Surrender the refugees, the Hunter commander demanded. Their dependence on technology must end. Miller looked at his crew, then at the image of their enemy. You know what your problem is. You've forgotten that technology is just a tool. It's not good or bad on its own. It's how you use it that matters. He nodded to his tactical officer. Now, Reed. The refugee ship's quantum drives activated in sequence, creating a massive energy field. The magnetic cables from the human ships caught this energy, shaping it, directing it. Basic physics turned into a weapon more powerful than any advanced technology. The Hunter fleet's sensors, designed to detect complex energy weapons, never saw the simple magnetic wave coming. It hit them like a tsunami, turning their own quantum drives against them. Ship after ship lost power, their complex systems overloaded by the most basic forces of nature. It worked. Torres shouted. Their ships are dead in space. But Reed wasn't finished. Using the refugee ship's redirected power, he created a simple but massive magnetic field around the entire fleet. When the Hunter ships tried to fire their weapons, the shots were caught in the field and harmlessly deflected. The Hunter commander's image flickered on their screens one last time. How did you defeat us with such primitive methods? Miller stood tall. Because sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. Your mistake was forgetting the basics while chasing advanced technology. We never forgot. In the hours that followed, the Hunter fleet was secured. Their crews, stripped of their technological advantage, surrendered. The refugee fleet, protected by their human allies, prepared for their journey to their new home. Admiral Rell stood with Miller in the lunar base a week later, watching the refugees being welcomed to their temporary home on Earth's moon. Your people have changed everything, Rell said. The galaxy thought humanity was too primitive to matter. Now they know better. What will you do with this recognition? Miller watched as human engineers taught alien refugees how to use simple tools alongside advanced technology. We'll do what humans have always done. We'll help. We'll teach. We'll remind people that it's not about how advanced your tools are. It's about how you use them. The galaxy's premier rescue specialists. Rel smiled. Humanity's new role. No, Miller corrected him. Our oldest role. We've always been problem solvers. We've just reminded the galaxy that sometimes the old ways are still the best ways. As if to prove his point, in the distance, Tom Reed was teaching a group of alien children how to use a simple wrench, their eyes wide with wonder at its elegant simplicity. The future had arrived, and humanity had found its place in it, not as the most advanced species, but as the ones who remembered the foundations that all advancement was built upon.